just invite you to close your eyes and take a deep breath and become really present here. Just really set the intention to put out love to the community today. It's really exciting to have access to so many people all at once and all their different places in the world. And my intention is that they feel the love wherever they are today, and that they feel empowered and like there are tools for them to move forth in a new way in the new earth and feel completely just empowered. Really, it's all about the empowerment.
That's right, Heather. It's all about empowering the people. And today we're going to empower you to create your own private membership association and break free from the matrix with your host, Johanna Z, PhD, right here at BeFreeSouls.com. Hello, welcome to the show. We're so glad you guys are here. We are just going to spend some time welcoming everybody. My name is Jennifer Serenity, and I am from Dare to Be Different. Here, we're going to be putting on an amazing workshop for you. Heather and I have been working hard to get this information out to the people. This is an empowered people workshop, and you are the empowered people. You showed up and you're here on time. Thank you all so much. We're going to be giving out a free membership today to some lucky winner today. So thank you so much for being here. And if you guys stay to the end, one of you will win a free membership, and we'll tell you all about what that means. We have an aligned directory that we are really eager to share with you. And our great friend here, Johanna, is going to be sharing with us all about PMAs. And she's also one of our amazing directory members. And so we just can't wait to share with you everything she has to share today. Thank you so much, Johanna, for being here. Heather, did you want to say hi real quick?
Yes, hi, welcome everybody. Just happy to be here and eager to learn more, and yeah, just feel empowered. So thank you, Johanna, for being here as our teacher today.
Oh, thank you. I am so excited to be here and so excited to see that so many people are joining us. This is wonderful. Yes.
Yes, such a great day to be here. And it's just a beautiful day here. I'm in California, and I think Johanna is in Oregon, right?
I am in Oregon. Yes.
Beautiful. And you used to live in California. You have some friends in my neighborhood too, right?
I did. I lived in Sebastopol. That's right.
Beautiful.
Love
Yeah.
it. Love it.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you all for being here. I'm Jennifer Serenity. We're just going to go ahead and dive right in. This will be replayed. So if anyone wants to watch the replay, we were going to be editing the video and we'll send it out to everyone. And you can also send us an email if you want to go ahead and be on our mailing list, where we create videos like this one. And we have a membership portal where you can have access later on to videos like this one. We are here to support you. We are here to help you thrive in your well-being and to give you tools and techniques to create necessary shifts in your consciousness to feel better and transform your life. And we just can't wait for you to tap into this PMA healing and learn how to take back the power of your own business and become that leader that we need more than ever right now in our community, to raise that vibration and support the shift that's happening right now. And with this workshop, Johanna's going to lead it here and take it away. And everyone's been waiting for this special time. And I'm just so happy to introduce Johanna here to talk all about PMAs. Thank you guys for being here. If you would please make sure everyone's on mute, we will go ahead and start the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So my name is Johanna Z, and I have quite a diverse background. I'll share with you a little bit before we get started, because I didn't just stumble. I mean, I haven't been studying about PMAs for a long time, but I'm a former RN, I'm a doctor of natural hygiene. I was a director of a couple of nonprofits. I've been an activist my whole life. And so when a friend of mine several months ago came to me and said, I need to do a PMA. I'm going to lose my license. I'm going to lose my practice. I'm really nervous. And I hadn't really paid a whole lot of attention. Oh, PMAs, I heard, about that. And so in order to help that person and a lot of people around me, actually, moms who were taking their kids out of school, everybody was getting frantic. I said, well, wait a minute, what is this all about? And why is everybody nervous? And you know, what is the big deal? What's the mystery about it? So I did the deep dive. And for the first time in my life, I read the Constitution and I just snowballed from there. So I've got a lot of labels, but I don't like to use labels. And I'm a researcher, and that's where this information is really coming from. And I'm a freedom lover, and I think that's really where it's coming from. So before we get started, I'd like to invite you to just close your eyes and just take a moment and take a few breaths, a few deep breaths. Feel the ground beneath your feet, the chair beneath your butt. If you're levitating, feel the air, whatever is supporting you right now, just feel that. And during this workshop today, I just invite you to pay attention to when you're coming from your head space, your mental space, and just pay attention to when you move to your heart space, because we're going to go back and forth, and just notice what comes up without allowing any story to that. And if you can, let go of thoughts about what am I having for lunch? Boy, is this going to be a waste of my time? What, you know, am I really going to get everything I need for $9.95? All of those thoughts, all those stories that come up, I just invite you to just be here with what's in front of us and stay open to anything that might come our way. And we'll just take one final breath. Okay. Thank you. So many of you are probably coming from different places here. Some have never heard of the PMA, or they just heard a little bit about it and what is it. And some of you probably already are well established with your PMA. And I'll try to address issues that might be of interest to all of you. So what is a PMA? Well, it's private membership association. And that's really just an umbrella term. It's not that we're going to look up in the dictionary and say, oh, this is what it is. It's a term that encompasses so many other terms, essentially. It's private clubs, private drinking clubs, private education association, private uh, health association, faith-based organization, ministry. All of these fall underneath the umbrella of a private membership association. And we have to really be aware that it's not the labels. This is in our head. It's like, I have to get this right. I need to get every aspect of it right. It's more what we're going to be embodying with learning about PMAs that's most important, because when you can actually embody this sovereignty, because this is the real reason we're doing this, right? Is for sovereignty. We want to be independent. We don't want the government telling us, how to run our businesses, how to teach our kids, how to get healthcare, what that healthcare is going to look like. We want that freedom. So in order to do that, it's not just a matter of paperwork and getting it right, because again, that's coming from a slave mentality. That's coming from, decades and decades of indoctrination. So one of the things I have felt is really important to this process is the deprogramming, the education, and learning that we truly are free beings. We are free, we are sovereign, we are independent. We are not beholden to a government just because they tell us that we are. So you can call your PMA whatever you want. They've been around for a long time. In the South, they're more accustomed to having them because they're more independent there and more fierce freedom fighters. And so a typical PMA there is one of those private drinking clubs. It's a private club and it's for members only. And the government has no regulation over it. So, for instance, the private drinking clubs in counties where they're not allowed to serve alcohol, the so-called dry counties, you can go into one of these private drinking clubs if you're a member and go in and get alcohol lawfully. And I talk about that that's one of the stories I mentioned in the in the book I wrote, the little ebook, It's None of Your Business, 7 Steps to Your PMA, I wanted to provide a guide for people to make it really simple. And you'll read that if you get the book. It's because it's a really classic example. Other PMAs are the NAACP, the Boy Scouts of America, the Bar Association. They've been around a long time, but it seems like we haven't been privy to that information on how and how to do that, how to be a part of it. We just thought it was kind of over there for like the elite or something. Oh, you have to pay a ton of money to be a part of that. Well, no more, because now the secret's out and so many people are jumping on board. And I want to just mention briefly that this has so much potential. Right now, we see our education system crumbling. I mean, in our county, the kids are walking out, with the mask walkouts. We're going to be serving the board of directors. They're going to collapse. They're going to lose funding because what they're doing is like not cool. And here comes these other PMAs stepping in while that's collapsing. These other systems are being birthed to create more freedom, education pods, learning pods. And we also have health pods showing up where the practitioners don't even have to be licensed because they don't have to be part of that regulatory system. Now, I know you're saying, well, that's like crazy because you can't practice medicine without a license. You can't. Well, who says? We're creating something that's been around a long time, and we're just doing it a little bit more formally. And hundreds of people in this area in Oregon have been saved because of this pro medical freedom group that's up here. And some of the people are licensed and some of the people are not, but it's all a membership based organization. And they're keeping people out of the medical prisons called hospitals right now, and they're helping people in their homes. And it's about relationships. That's really what they're about, what the PMAs are about. So that's a little introduction as to what's, what a PMA is. And just as I've done in my ebook, I want to spend a moment talking about language, about education, and the deprogramming that's so important. Many people right now are looking to just have someone set up their PMA. Just let me pay for it, let me do it so I have this freedom. Well, what you're doing is you're asking for permission on the outside. You're saying, okay, give this freedom to me. I want you to give me the freedom. Or we're waiting for the laws to change, right? We're telling them, you know, I can only have this once you give it to me. And that's coming from the outside. And I encourage you to take a look at really where it needs to come from first is from within. We need to fully embody that freedom to make it real because, they can give us our freedom on the outside, but as soon as they change their mind, we no longer have that freedom. But if we have it here, then we're always going to have it. And it doesn't matter what they say or what they do because we're going to have it. So if we look at our lives and we pay attention to everything that we've known to be true, and I know that many of you out there have done a lot of deep dives over the past couple of years, and you have found out, oh my God, right? Wow, that's not the way I thought it was. Our history is not what we thought it was. Our everything, everything that we've been taught seems to be a big lie. And that's our programming. We've been conditioned to live life in a certain way, to believe that the government is there to protect us, that the government is going to keep us safe. And wow, that's just been kind of thrown out of the water, whatever you want to. This is Italian, by the way. I'm Italian. So you're going to see this. You know, we've been conditioned, programmed to essentially be in a system that has kept us imprisoned, teaching us, even our education system, the way they teach us to do handwriting has kept us very oppressed and kept us It's not encouraging us to be fully who we are, to be our authentic selves. It's trying to fit us into a particular box to be worker bees. And that's not freedom. That's not freedom. So everything from, from our expectations in life, from the way that we value ourselves. We have to in school, it's about rewards and punishment. It's about how productive you are. Even in this spiritual movement, it's like, well, how nice you are, how kind you are, how this is your value. And that's not really true. That's not really how it is. It's we have value that is inherent in us. We are free human beings, and no one can take that away, but we can give that away. And that's what we've done. So we're in the process, these PMAs is one tool. We're in the process of taking that back. We're saying, no, I'm going to do it this way. And, we're doing it respectfully, though. We're not doing it from this outer force. It's from the inner strength. If you've ever read David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force, I've read about 4 of his book, but that first one, I loved it because it really differentiated it made the difference between what's it look like to use outer force to get what you want or coming from a place of inner strength. To illustrate that, we recently had a FEMA bus. Everybody knows what FEMA is by now, sadly. So yes, they had different purposes, but here they were hosting vax clinics in our town, and there were people that were very upset about that. And we had a group of people there to just kind of to not to protest necessarily, but to offer information, education. But there were a couple in the group that used that outer force. Now, in the end, they left. They were supposed to be here for 11 days. They left after 2 days because they were afraid of a couple of people among the group. And does that end justify the means? Well, we're happy they left. However, we're picking up the pieces because we weren't, as a group, embodying that inner freedom. We were basically just a show of force. Well, a couple people were. Most of us weren't. A couple people were. And this is important because when you have your paperwork established and when you are doing your PMA, when you are actively doing commerce, selling, exchanging information, products, services, you may come up against things that give you the opportunity to either use your inner strength and coming from that place of freedom, or you can have a show of outer force. So it behooves us to take a look at that about ourselves. Some people will attract chaos in their lives, and some people do not. And we're in a huge transition, right? We're in a huge transition now, right? We're getting rid of the old paradigm and we're inviting in the new. And yet we still have to be really clear about, I don't want this, but I want this. But if we stay over here fighting, it's going to be really hard to move into this space. So another invitation to just pay attention to that, pay attention to who you are as a person and what it is that you want for yourself, for your family, for your community. If it's harmony, then you can have that harmony at the same time standing up for yourself, being authentic to yourself, and being really true to, well, to freedom, right? Okay, let's just take a moment and take a breath because I've just thrown a lot at many of you here. And again, you'll have the recording. So it's helpful for me sometimes when I'm listening to a lot of this information to just kind of sit with it and just take it in. And then in the future, maybe take notes because we're going to get into, more of that headspace stuff of what does it take to have a PMA. But right now, what I value the most and what I feel like is the most important in moving forward is coming from the heart space and really embodying this sense of freedom and not waiting for it on the outside to come to you. Just just be it. Just be it and live it. So, education, now as I mentioned, whew, it's not something I wanted to do was to, and not that that sounds terrible. It's not that I didn't want to read the Constitution, but I had never had a thought to do it. I lived by default, like many of us, and I didn't realize all that was in there. I really don't even remember reading it in school ever. I knew it existed. So I spent some time reading the US Constitution because I heard that not only is having a private membership association inherent in just being human, but it's also backed by the US Constitution, by your state constitution, by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, by the everything that's out there essentially is just supporting this, supporting who we are. And yet somehow, with the school system, the education system, we've allowed ourselves to turn from this inner authority to this outer authority, whether it's a teacher, a doctor, a priest, and have that as a go-between with truth. Oh, truth, it comes from out here, even if it's Facebook or CNN. We've accepted that as truth, not we here in this group, of course, you know, but in general, that's how we've lived our lives until recently. And that's all, I mean, that's shifting for many people, and that's shifting. So we want to educate ourselves on these other things that back us up so that we feel more confident. Sometimes it takes the education and reading of the books to realize that this is inherent. Now, that was an actual, I'm kind of a very, have to be productive. I'm one of 10 kids, and my whole life was about if I wasn't productive and being of service or doing something, I really didn't feel I had a lot of value. It's hard if I wasn't working full time or something. It was one of my issues many of us have is, lack of self value. So if I wasn't productive, so when I started this process, it was all mind for me. It was all in the mind. Okay, I'm going to read this and I'm going to figure out, I'm going to read it and I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to tell people how to do this. I'm going to put in a 7-step thing because I love the number 7, and I'm going to make it easy for people. Well, a funny thing happened while I was reading this, while I was doing this research, is I really started to move from my head to my heart. I was like, OMG. This is wow. Wow, these guys were onto something a couple hundred years ago. They're saying that simply because we exist, we have these rights, these inalienable rights, and they can't be taken away by any other law, regulation, rule, mandate, recommendation. It just can't. And then I learned about the Federalist Papers and the American jurisprudence. And there's so much material out there to back this up. And then there's also case law. So, as you know, when there's issues or controversies or lawsuits, people can, they can sue you or they can take you to court. And you can keep appealing decisions until it gets to the Supreme Court, the US Supreme Court. And what they're supposed to do, okay, they're supposed to use the US Constitution to evaluate a situation. Now, we know there's so much corruption, but this is all shifting. And there's a lot of case law out there that backs up all these situations. So it's helpful for you to have a cursory understanding of that. And I try to lay it out really simply for people in a friendly format in the ebook so that you know what case law backs up your rights. And for those of you who might be writing the notes down, right, it's the in the US Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, it's the first, fourth, fifth, ninth, 10th, and 14th, at least, in the Bill of Rights that supports our ability to have a PMA. And it even sounds strange saying it, our ability to have, well, it's like, okay, no, we have the right to contract, to have a contract with another being. And nobody can interfere with that. Unless, the only thing is, unless you're creating a clear and present danger of a substantial evil. And I always like to use this example because it's the easiest thing, is that if you are a baker and you want to open a bakery out of your house, you don't, as under a private membership association, you do not need to get a food handler's license. You do not need to have a health inspection, and you can make food in your own home and sell it to other members of your association. However, if you decide to do something really nefarious and put, and poison the cake or put X-Lax or something in it, that's just so not cool, right? So not cool. And somebody should intervene at that point. So understanding that education. Now, a couple of things are really important that actually are cornerstone to the PMA, and that's the difference between public versus private domain. Okay, domain, jurisdiction. This is what gives us this ability. Again, it sounds funny. We're asking for permission. Let us do this. Why can we do this? Well, because we're in the private domain. Now, government and law enforcement and all these regulatory agencies were created to work in the public domain, out in the public park, public schools, public, all for that. That's their jurisdiction. You may understand jurisdiction, from all those cop shows or something. Somebody's, you know, um, a police officer from one town cannot just go to the next town and decide to do his work there. He doesn't have jurisdiction. It's not his area. It's not his space. The difference is, again, I mentioned this, if he's in hot pursuit or something, it's like somebody goes from one domain into another domain, and then that gets a little shady at that point. But what we're doing is you're creating a private domain that the government does not have jurisdiction over. And you have a responsibility, though, when you create that, you have a responsibility to have a contract with your other members and get very clear as to what's expected. And you're creating your own laws, essentially, in your private domain. And other language we talk about too is unincorporated versus incorporated. Private membership associations are unincorporated. Statutory versus non-statutory. You have to be really careful when you write up your paperwork on, the language that you use. Now, many years ago, I was involved in animal welfare organizations, and we would write up bylaws to become a 501c3. And that is a state-regulated nonprofit organization. And the most important thing for that was to put in that language that, oh, we're going to follow all the state statutes. Don't worry about us. We're going to be compliant with everything. Well, we are not going to be compliant, right? We do not comply. We are not compliant with state statutes. We are not incorporated. We're not going to play that game. And we're not really told about this because they want everybody over in this area so they can regulate everybody. So when we get to the point of writing the bylaws or articles of association, language is important to pay attention to. We don't want to give up our rights. We don't want to ask for permission. And this is where, again, embodying that freedom comes into play. If we haven't done that, we're going to have a harder time writing up the paperwork because we have all that indoctrination, all that programming still within us. And that could be a lifelong process. So we've talked about the language and the programming, and I I can almost hear this voice. Wait, she didn't talk about a 508c1a. That's the I want to mention the difference between the 508c1a and the 501c3. Okay? Because there can be a little mix up on that. Sometimes people identify like, oh, I'm a 508. Well, it's really just an IRS tax status. They're just codes within the IRS code. And people refer to it as what their organization is. So a 501c3, the typical ones that we've been used to are the non-government organizations, the nonprofits, which could be anything. A lot of churches are 501c3s. With that, though, they enjoy a tax exempt status, which means that they're part of the game, they're playing the game, but they give them an exception to an exemption, an exemption to paying the taxes. Part of the game, public domain, and they get to have this little extra, right, of not having to pay taxes. Now, the 508c1a, also considered nonprofits, but considered, in the tax code, it says church, which could be ministry, which could be faith-based organization. They enjoy what's called they are a, let's say this, they are a tax exception, not exemption, exception, which I love this in that it's like, you're not a part of the game. You're not a part of their game. You got your own game going, sister. It's like, or brother, so it's, you're not following their rules, their guidelines, their indoctrination. You have your own thing going, and you don't even fall within their tax code. And they just happen to mention it because they exist, because you have that, because it's there. So when we start talking a little bit about the actual paperwork and whether you decide to be a faith-based organization or just a private education association, I tend to encourage people to look towards doing the faith-based organization, which would allow you to fall under that tax code status, because it gives you a little bit more security and it gives you more freedom too. And I hope that makes sense. And let's just let that sink in for a minute, because that's a lot. That's a lot. I'm going to give a shout out to my friend in Sebastopol, who, when I started writing this, she said, Johanna, just it can be such dry material. You got to make it fun. You got to make it, light. And that's been my attempt. And if I can just point to the amazing potential this has, there's a lot of groups out there that are starting to network with each other. And imagine just doing business with, as human to human, not worrying about these regulations, these rules, and we're just relating to each other and getting the services that we need. I mean, right now we have people fighting to get people out of hospitals. We have parents upset at the curriculum in the schools. We have, and here we are, out of that darkness has come these amazing light-filled programs and ideas that are bringing us into this just amazing new paradigm. So this is an exciting time for all of us. Okay, so shall we get down to some of well, what do we have to do? How is it, how does this work? How can I have a private membership association? It's actually easier than you think. Once you have a concept, an idea to embody this and say, oh, wait, I do have these rights to do it. Because, as I say, a bird doesn't ask permission to fly from tree to tree. Why do I have to ask permission to do everything in this world? And why do I have to pay all these fees for licenses and permits and, just to be able to, have commerce or provide services to my neighbors and other people in the community? Well, you don't. You don't have to pay all those things. And this is the beauty of it all. So step one, and I don't want to say that it's the most important, but it's important, is the paperwork. Now, you don't actually have to have a lot of paperwork because you can just have a contract with someone else and you've got what you need right there because no one can challenge that. You write out the details of the contract, you both sign it, you both date it, you have a contract. That's solid. However, if you're wanting to bring more people into your association, to your organization, to your business, to your services, you want to let people know how you do things. And there's no one right way to do this. In my research, I had found such a vast array of how it's being done among different organizations. And in fact, I've seen the paperwork from these companies who do provide this for you. And the range is just amazing. And that was part of where I started going from my head to my heart. And I'm like, wait a minute. There's nothing that says it has to be a certain way. There's nothing that says it has to be written up by a legal person so we want to focus on the essence of what they're looking for. And the essence is don't give away your rights. Don't ask for permission. Be sure that every member signs a contract and has read your bylaws. And it doesn't really matter necessarily what you call them. Some companies had elaborate articles of association, bylaws, contract. Some had all of those in one contract. Some had two contracts. Some were very simple. Some were very extensive and even like redundant. And I didn't see a rhyme or reason necessarily to it. Generally, though, articles of association are the framework of your organization, your business. And the bylaws are essentially your inner workings. How do you handle things? What do your meetings look like? How often are you doing your meetings? How many board of directors are you going to have? How many, what do you do if there's a dispute? And it's important to do that, especially if you have an organization where you're going to be accepting donations, or it just brings more legitimacy. It shows that I've taken the time to really think this out and I know how I want to run things. However, if you get too specific in this, then you're going to have to sit there and revise it each time there's an issue. And that could be okay for you. But if you leave it general enough and leave enough room in your language, that'll help you that you're like, okay, I'm reminded of, I went to a city council meeting recently and someone brought in their flagpole with their flag from their house. And they walked up to the front and they said, I noticed you guys don't do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd really like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, before this. And they said, oh, well, there's so many people here tonight. We weren't doing it because everybody was on Zoom. But yeah, okay, we'll do it. And he said, okay, great, let's start. And they said, no, we can't. It's not on the agenda. And we were all like, what? So sometimes we lose the essence of what we're trying to do in favor of the rules, the very hard rules. So another invitation is to just be really comfortable with it all and not worry too much about that, because the reality is no matter how good your paperwork is, there are people who are going to challenge you, and you may still have to stand up for your rights until you can really fully embody those rights. Not sure if that makes sense. So your paperwork's the first thing, and there are many groups out there that will help you write them. I always encourage people to be a really integral part of that, because knowing who you are, your business is, how you want to do things, your mission statement, your purpose is, it's really important for you to bring that sovereignty to light. So doing the paperwork, and in my ebook, I throw some templates in there, and you can use whatever you want, expand on it. I also put a bunch of links to show you what other groups have done. And there are so many people out there who are working on this that you can get together with other people and come up with different ideas to do that. So it's not like, don't be afraid. Notice the fear that comes up. That's really important too. It's like, it's like that fear of persecution. I have that too. But that's lessening over the past couple of years. We're afraid we're not going to get it right. Someone's going to come to our door. Someone's going to tell us, you're doing this and you don't have the proper licenses. It's okay. You don't need to have those licenses. You can live freely and independently. So what do you want to do next after you do your paperwork? And these steps don't actually have to be done exactly in this order, but this is what I came up with. So the next one is going to be claiming your 508c1a status. Now I say claiming because we're not asking for permission. There is an IRS form to fill out and to submit. Right now, people are saying it's taking about 3 months to get that back, regardless of how they send it in. And you are stating and claiming that this is who you are. Now, when you write up your paperwork, if you're claiming that you're 508c1a, you can't just say, yes, I'm a faith-based organization. You need to show it a little bit. You need to say we have a strong faith in God or nature's God. And whatever core values that are your faith need to go in there. So consider that. And then if you already have a business, you're going to want to transition that business. If you have an LLC or a sole proprietorship, now this is only if you're wanting to switch completely over from that to a PMA. Some people actually have an LLC under the umbrella of their PMA. There are many, many ways to do it. Everything and anything is really possible. So if you're going to transition your business and you've already got an established business, you'll want to post it somewhere for 30 days and make sure you document that you've posted it. And then you close for 1 day and you reopen with your new status. Some people may find that they might have to get a new EIN number. It really depends. We didn't talk about the EIN number yet. So your EIN, excuse me. Your EIN is your employer identification number. You only need this if you're going to be doing banking in a regular bank. Some people are using PayPal, some people are using crypto, some people are only doing cash, and then it's not an issue for them. But getting your, that's what, I'm sorry, I'm going to backtrack now. The EIN is what's been taking the 3 months, not the 508 status. You claim your 508 status when you get your EIN, when you apply for your EIN. I hope that makes sense. It's the IRS document for the EIN, where you will state. The claiming is actually, it's an internal thing. You're saying, this is what I am. You don't have to file it. There's no place to file it anywhere. You're putting that information on the EIN paperwork if you're doing that. The only time you may want to file something that has come up with some parents, when they take their kids out of public school, they can inform, you see the language here, not asking for permission, just letting them know, my child is now being homeschooled. We have a private education association. It's just informing. You see how we're bringing more freedom to us internally, and we're living it. We're living it. If you have a private practice, for instance, you're a naturopathic doctor or some other holistic practitioner, and you're switching over, or you have a clientele and you're switching over, you will need to let them know what you're doing and to educate them. So the more that you know about what you're doing and why you're doing it, the easier it's going to be to show them how it's going to benefit them. And that could be a simple, easy, it could be a handout. You could make a little video from everybody. Hey, this is what I'm doing. And they will see your confidence. They will see the benefit it will have. You're not going to close when the government tells you to close. You don't require this, right? The masks or anything to provide services. So they will readily understand how important that is and sign a contract. I haven't heard of anybody having any issues with that. And last couple of things is, if you know yourself and you know that, "Oh, I just can't do this. This is crazy. All this paperwork. No way." Get support. There's people out there, there's companies out there who can help you, who can write them up for you and provide support. Do a little research. I've put some links in the book too. You can investigate, make sure it's the right one. I've seen some places that people are not really happy with what they did and they end up starting fresh on their own. And other people are very happy with the paperwork that they got. So you might want to ask around and see who recommends, what company to help you. And that's also being authentic to yourself. You're saying, you know what? This is not my area. I'm not really comfortable with this. I get all this, but I don't want to write this. I don't want to have this responsibility. That's okay. That's okay. You get to decide. You get to decide. That's the important part. And lastly, what I recommend people is networking with other PMAs, other groups, talking to people, letting people know what you're doing and how amazing this whole process is. I think eventually we're going to be moving into a world where we don't have all these regulatory agencies, where we don't have to, be worried all the time that we're doing something wrong but right now, it's really important for us to stand up in our truth and stand up in our freedom and to use these tools that are here for us. So I know I didn't cover everything, and I look forward to hearing if there's any questions that anyone may have, and I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Johanna. Does anybody have any questions? We do have a few questions in the chat. Somebody was asking if you know about AAA being a private members association.
Oh, yes, I did hear that they also are. Yes. Yep. Yep.
Beautiful.
It's kind of crazy. It's like, they're all around us, but we're not really told about them. There are membership associations, but they're not necessarily private, like Costco. You go into Costco and they're not private, but they are a membership association.
Wonderful. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for
You're welcome.
answering that.
Thank you.
And let's see, we have a comment from Rayanne Madison. Thank you so much. She loves your style and your approach. And she has a question. If she wants to open up a tea shop with a gathering space, can she word it to qualify as a 508c1A?
Absolutely. If it's your passion to bring nourishing substances to the world, you have a faith, a very strong faith in a in nature, in God's nature or nature's God. You can word it. Actually, it's in the Declaration of Independence, I think, some wording which is really specific to nature about that. So a very strong philosophy, a very strong faith It doesn't have to be a traditional religion, absolutely not. And it can be, if it's something, if it's your passion and your calling, it's your divine calling. Again, we're just talking semantics here. Then yes, absolutely, you can call it that.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. I know everyone's eager to find out some more information. We're going to give you guys the link to her book, but we're just going to see if anyone else has any questions. You want to come on screen, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question now. We will go ahead and put the link to the book in the chat here. She has this book. It's amazing. Does anybody have any questions? All right, Victoria put a question in the chat. Thank you, Victoria. She'd love to learn if you could explain more about the LLC, how they would operate under the PMA umbrella.
So, limited liability corporation. And I've seen people do this for a number of reasons that a PMA does not, they need to either maintain some sort of license or whatever it is. There's so many different ways of doing this. You have to just be really clear as to what this is over here and what this is over here. To give you an example, the one that's easiest for me is to explain someone who wants to maintain their license for whatever it is under a PMA that doesn't require a license, but that license allows them to do certain things. So it's really important to have a distinction with whatever that you're doing and explain that, you know, this, I'm doing this under the umbrella of this. I don't know if that makes sense, in that if, for instance, a healthcare practitioner is going to recommend a health device that is not FDA approved, I'm just FDA approved, it's kind of a funny thing right now. So then, you know, they have to be really clear that I am offering this as part of this membership association, not as this aspect of me with this license over here. You have to make a distinction. And there are so many different ways of doing it depending on what the LLC is for and what you're doing, what services you're providing, what, you know, but making a big umbrella for your PMA, essentially your faith-based organization, and you can put other things in there in your bylaws, you know, to be really specific about that. So I would be a little bit more expansive than I put in my templates with that situation.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here until you guys can see the website. Can everybody see the website? This is Johanna's website. Here, you guys can go to zhealing.com to get her book. Click on the green strip at the top and you will be able to find her book. Here, it's $10. It's less than $10 actually, and it's an ebook, so you can download it on your computer and get access to it right now. We will go ahead and send out an email with the links as well. And if you do need some support, Johanna is here. She's going to tell a little bit about an upcoming workshop she's going to be doing in a few minutes. But I did just want to go ahead and also let you know that we do have a donation spot on our website. And if you found value in this workshop and you want to show your gratitude, we're going to go ahead and put the link in the chat to our website where you can make a donation for this awesome workshop. And you can learn more about our membership opportunity. We did go ahead and pick one person to receive at random a membership. And Crystal, if you're still with us, we chose your name at random. So thank you, whoever's name is Crystal's on the chat here. We just want to let you know you've won a free membership. So we will go ahead and reach out to you. Thank you again so much, Johanna. zhealings.com. There's the website. We'll go ahead and put it in the chat. And if you would please tell us a little bit more about your upcoming workshop. And we have a few more questions as well to answer after you tell us about your workshop.
Okay, so just briefly, and I actually don't have an exact date set, but it's an embodying freedom workshop, because that's truly what my passion is to help people to be free, essentially, internally, to let go of that programming, that indoctrination, and to be really curious about who they are and find that authenticity and to live as authentically as possible. That's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, I had this question in the chat too, and I'm going to sum it up in the way I think it will help everyone. Um, so my question is, and somebody else has this question too, is if you have a ministry-based PMA or you want to have one, and say you want to have multiple little businesses within your ministry, how does that work? And how can you word it in your documents to state, for instance, here at Dare to Be Different, we are a PMA, and
Hmm.
we are working with light leaders like yourself who don't have the time to learn how to do a PMA or put their paperwork together. And so we want to create sort of like an umbrella company and foundation for people who, like everyone on this call who's interested in a PMA, and so they can be protected. So could you talk a little bit about that and how that's worded, and is that even an option?
Absolutely. So actually, this is true for a lot of groups here that I'm working with. Is they're wanting to do the same thing. They're creating this umbrella faith-based or ministry organization, and within that, they're allowing families to create their own education associations or sell products or anything that they feel is serving to each other within their community. My only thought when I heard that is you do want to make sure that you have a criteria for the membership that you bring in and that everybody fully understands what it means to be a member of a private membership association. That means that they're not, they're not going to sell out in the public. They only sell their products, for instance, or exchange services in the private realm. So everyone needs to be a part, everyone needs to be a membership. So you can say that, oh, I've got this faith-based organization and ministry, and I've allowed these 20 like subgroups to be a part of this. They've all signed our paperwork, but yet do you know for sure that those 20 subgroups are doing everything within your scope that you have set there? I'm not sure if that makes sense. So you've got some people who, let's say, make the teas, but all of a sudden one of them wants to go to the public farmers market and sell their teas there. Well, somehow one of the teas, something didn't happen and someone's upset, and they're not a member of the group. And so it's going to trickle back to you. So you want to just be sure that it's kept really, I think I want to say clean, clean, and that who's doing this or not, and empower people to create their own. You could say, hey, copy what we've done and we'll teach you everything that we need to do so that you have your own. If you're going to be in another state, you're going to be in something else, you know so that you can kind of monitor what's going on in that group. Does that make sense? But
Yes.
absolutely, you have this umbrella, and what you do is part of it is like, the bylaws, or you can call it your constitution, you can call it your articles. You're going to write what the purpose of your organization is. And that purpose, you could write 20 things there. The purpose is to, bring like-minded people together. The purpose is to sell, nourishing products. The purpose is to educate our kids in a way that we see fit. All of these things can be in there, and you can get elaborate with it. You can get general with it. The question is, if it comes to a time that, because we've got this fear, like what could happen? Oh my gosh, I'm, we're running a school, or I'm teaching without a license, or, can you bring this forth, if ever need be, to a judge, if that ever comes to it, and say to them, this is what we're doing, and we're protected by the Constitution, and that's backed up by case law, and get out of my face. I don't mean it like that, but that's why I wrote the book. It's none of your business, but in a funny way, because it's like, hey, no, that we got this on. Don't worry, we got this going on over here. You guys do your thing. We got our thing going, right? So that's the idea, is we are embodying that freedom. And there are people who are in lawsuits right now. They've actually sued the county because they came on their property and tried to tell them they couldn't do what they were doing. And this is actually one of the groups that makes the writes up the paperwork for people. And I think they're doing it more intentionally to push the envelope so that there's precedence for other, which is a wonderful thing. Not something I would want to do, but I admire the people that are really pushing forth with that to protect others, essentially.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we have another question in here. There's a lot of misinformation about PMAs. Most people still don't know what they are, especially churches and tax accountants. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to answer that. I just know I've been to a lot of PMA workshops, and when I hear from the experts, sometimes they speak and I don't understand all the language and the verbiage. And so I'm gonna explain it in my own way, and then you can explain it in your own way, because my way might resonate with those who might not understand the lingos. So what I understand to be a PMA is a piece of paperwork and a document that outlines my ability to exercise my freedoms from the First and Fourth Amendment. Is that correct?
Minimally, first, fourth, fifth,
Yeah,
ninth, tenth, right?
minimally,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, right.
And that the piece of paper is an agreement, just like when anybody agrees to sign up for Costco, or they sign their kid up for Little League, or they sign their kid up, or you sign up for health insurance. You have to agree to terms that if you do this, this is going to happen, right? If you die, this is how much you're going to get. If you don't die and you have an accident, right, this is how much you can get. And so with a PMA, there's a piece of paper and there's member benefits. Just like when you have an insurance policy, there's benefits. And so with the private membership association, you have benefits that you give to your members, which in this case, with Dare to Be Different, it would be workshops like this. This is considered a member benefit, and people will receive this as a member benefit for joining Dare to Be Different. If you're Costco, you get to get a discount on goods, right? If you're Boy Scouts, you get to sign your kid up for Boy Scouts. You get to interact with the community and do all kinds of great services for the community with Boy Scouts. So basically, I understand that the PMA is a structure to help protect you. And there is a lot of misinformation about having one or not having one. And another question is, what do we do with insurance if we have an event or we have a building we're renting and we have to have some kind of insurance for our business? How does that work with a PMA? And maybe talk a little bit about misinformation about PMAs.
Right. Okay. So there are a few questions in there. So backing up, and remind me if I miss one. Tax accountants who don't know about PMAs, that's very normal, because we've been pushed to only do it in one way, to be regulated in so many different ways. So it is important to use language that they understand, and that would be, you are an unincorporated organization or association. Unincorporated, not incorporated. And the difference between Costco and the others is Costco, again, is a membership association, but they're a public membership association, such that they're in the public realm. It's different, and they are subject to the rules of the public, but they get to make a lot of their own rules. A little bit different. So yeah, I hadn't talked about, well, what does it get to be? What do you get to be to have a member? What are the benefits? So talking to your accountant, now everything that I have heard is that it's really important to have a good accountant, and someone that you may have to educate that accountant on what you do. Non-statutory is another way of saying commonwealth. It's learning that language is important. And then they're the ones who are going to keep up on all the tax codes, not us, because it just changes all the time. So just paying attention to that. You are mostly tax exempt or exception to the taxes in what you do, not 100%, because there are different scenarios. You may have people who work for you and you will pay them on a 1099, or maybe you pay them in cash, and then you leave it up to them to report. if they want to. They're as a private contractor if they want to report their taxes. That's a whole nother thing of extricating yourself from those systems. And the last question was about, say that again.
The insurance for
The
PMAs,
insurance. Okay.
business
Right.
insurance specifically.
Okay. So you don't need liability insurance if you're on your own property because it's in your contract and your bylaws that there is no litigation, that there is no one's going to sue you. Your members are not going to sue you because you've written a contract that they're not going to, that any disputes are handled in-house, right? However, you may want to protect your assets, your the things that you have with some sort of homeowners insurance or things like that that protect, from theft or flood or whatever. So that type of insurance is important. You want to make sure that you're protected in that way. But liability insurance, you won't need if you're only dealing with your members. But if you're letting everybody and anybody come through, that's a different story. Then somebody comes in that's not a member, they slip on your floor and they're going to come blame you. They're not a member of your association. So it's important to be conscious of that. If you're having an event, then it really depends where you're having it. If you're renting space from someone else, you need to have a contract with whoever you're renting space with so that you're both on the same page. And you can get, for instance, insurance for a specific event. If you're going to hold something at a public park, for instance, in a public space, you're going to be subject to the public laws and rules and issues. However, I know one group, they're creating a farmer's market here. And they're going to do it on a parking lot that belongs to someone who's supportive of the freedom movement. There, I said you have to delineate the space. So they're just going to put something around the space, and only members get to go into that space, nobody else. And then they're covered.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I wanted to chime in, and then Cindy's gonna has her hand raised, so she's been waiting. We're gonna let her on in a minute. But thank you so much for answering that. And I wanted to let you know, as a PMA, Heather and I have had many events, and we've gotten insurance from farmers with no problem. They don't ask for an EIN or any kind of documents. They just want to be paid. Well, you got $200? Sure, we'll take your money. That's how insurance works for businesses. You can get a policy online. They do not care who you are or where you're doing your business. They just want to take your money. So again, it's just about asking permission. And we also really want to say that hosting your events in places that don't require insurance is also a way to not worry about that. So thank you for answering that. And we're going to go ahead and let Cindy unmute herself. Thank you, Cindy, for waiting. What's your question?
Hi, Joanna. Thanks for having.
Hi, Cindy. Oh, you froze. Still frozen.
Well, as we're waiting for her to come back on, maybe
I'm curious, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, you're frozen a bit. So start over, Cindy.
Okay. I was wondering if there is any collective legal support for the PMA structures. Like if you have a PMA and because people's general ignorance around it, have they been, could the government or police or try to shut you down, and what kind of remedy do you have to combat that? Should there be attempts at fines and things like that? Is there support?
Right. So really, really good questions. It's important to remember that lawyers their oath of office is to the court, and that's a public realm. So they're not, their first is to the court, then the state, and then to you. So they're not for you. They're always going to be going towards their oath of office. If they're supporting you, they're breaking their oath of office. Minimally, what you could find is, or the best would be, a constitutional lawyer. There aren't that many around, but a constitutional lawyer, someone who, goes from the Constitution, understands the Constitution. Now, there are actually people who are legal consultants who refuse to take the bar, association, because it's extremely corrupt system. You could look that up. It comes from England or something. I don't know the details of it, but people are saying we will never, ever do that. Not every state has that. So they are people who have studied law for a long time, and they will support some of these groups. I've seen the PMA structure, fee structure, anywhere from a few hundred to $10,000, offering you lifetime support for legal support. They won't go to court with you, but they will advise you. That's why it's really important to embody this, because right now they are taking, I've got two friends that just got arrested for not wearing masks, for instance, and they're in and out of the court systems. And we know that they're not really following the law right now with all the mandates. So everything's kind of like up in the air. So the more that we get really clear and embody that freedom and connect with others, I do know on my, in my book, there's a couple of links there of groups of companies that do support each other if something happens. They recommend, if the county comes on your property, make sure you video document it. I also recommend really coming from a place of compassion and curiosity and not adversarial, and just be really clear in who we are and say, I hear you. I know you're just doing your job. This is a little confusing to you, and you haven't had to run into this, but we are a private membership association. We do have a constitutional right to be here. Let me show you some paperwork, and I'm going to ask that you step off my property, or I'm going to have to call, someone for, call the police for trespassing. So I don't want to do that, and I know you don't want to do that. So, that sort of energy, as opposed to, we can only imagine what someone might say if someone comes on our property, and we don't want them on our property. So there are groups out there, again, who offer legal, consultation. But the more you know about this, the more you recognize your own sovereignty and your ability to do this, and nobody can say otherwise. And again, the only thing that would keep you from doing anything is if what you're doing, and they have to show intent, they have to show that what you are doing is creating, and this is specific language, creating a substantial, clear and present danger of a substantial evil. They say substantive, but I don't like to say that. So substantial evil. Something like so bad, that's so horrible that they need to step in. Otherwise, you have a contract, you're working from a contractor's, point of view. And that's where the networking comes in, and people will help you and support you. And the more of us who do this, if you have a whole community who's doing this, I mean, they nobody's going to bother you, in my, thought. And just being sure that your paperwork is in line, saying that, hey, this is all between members. We're not, that's where, if you make an umbrella that's way too big, and you've got some groups have gone rogue and say, like, well, I want to sell over here because I'll sell a lot more, but it's in the public realm, or I want to provide these services, and I know they're not members, but I just wanted to do it. You have to really consider, is that, is it worth it to be bigger, or do you want to just empower other people to do their own thing, so that if they have issues, they're going to work it out. That's why it's good to really just talk with other people and see who's doing this, and get together and make sure you invoke your rights and not give them up, and don't ask for permission, and come from a place of recognizing that this is a new thing to a lot of county officials, and also being cautious. Like in some of the paperwork that I've written, I specifically say that nobody in a regulatory capacity can be a member unless approval by the founder, so that you're not inviting people in as a membership who has that mindset of, wait, you can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. You need to have a food handler's license, or you need, what I mean? So just being conscious of that. Did that
Okay.
help?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really helpful. We have a couple more questions, and I just wanted to let Shelly know. Shelly looks like she's asking a question about a gym. If you have a gym and you have a membership-based type of business, you just have to add this paperwork to your membership, platform when they sign all the documents. Just like I worked at a gym, for many years, and so I would assume that you would just, have this paperwork and you'd have them sign it just like you would have them sign your already existing membership. Is that right?
Well, actually, it's more than that because that's, you have an EIN number, EIN, employer identification number. And when you fill that out, you are actually saying what type of organization you are. So if your paperwork that you filed to be a corporation or whatever you've done states that you're a corporation, you have to actually change that. You have to either refile with a new number or get the IRS to switch that and make sure that they've done that properly.
But
So that,
once your business is filed as a PMA, right, they would have, this would be their new gym membership agreement, right? They would, on their new paperwork, if she wanted to become a PMA, she would have to refile and structure her business as a PMA, not as a
yeah,
corporation.
right. If she has an established gym, and she wants to switch over, then it would be, she needs to post a notice for like 30 days somewhere. It could be a bulletin board, it could be her bulletin board, but someplace where people have access to it, and document that, okay, this went up on this day. You see some courthouses do it. You've got a bulletin board, you've got the date it was posted, it's been there for 30 days. You close for one day and you reopen it with your new status, new paperwork, new things like that.
And
Yeah.
then all her existing members would probably get an email saying, hey, we're closing for a day, we're restructuring, everybody needs to sign a new membership agreement. Here it is. If you want to read more about it, come in and talk to me. But that all of her existing members would have to sign a new PMA form, and they
Yes.
would have to agree to the information in your PMA, which
Yep.
would be,
Yep.
if like in mine, it's, you have to have a belief in the freedom of choice. And so that means you're
Yep.
not going to make somebody take a vaccine. You're not going to make somebody take a medicine or a pill or wear a mask. You're not going to make anybody do anything they don't want to do.
Right.
So that's one of the agreements in my
Yep.
organization. And so depending on what your membership agreements are, you get to make those up for yourself. So
Right.
awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Piper's had her hand up. Let's hear from Piper.
Hi there. Thank you. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Thank you for spreading the word on PMAs. I've been following it for the past couple years, and I just am curious. David Edwards from PMA Power is where all the groups that I've been looking into, like Renegade Nation or Renegade Ranch and the Freedom Angels, that's where they learned from. And I just wanted to know if Johanna, is that where you got a lot of your original information? Because there's people who have been spreading, I feel like, misinformation about, oh, you can be incorporated and have a PMA. But the best info I've gotten so far was from what originally David Edwards had been sharing and getting a lot of people on board.
Right. So I did study their stuff, and I actually got in contact with one of their people, and I do include those links in there. Some people are happy with that work. Some people are not. Some people have actually torn up their paperwork from one of the people that worked under him. And he's got about 20 or so, at least, maybe even more than that, people under him at this point. And he's the one that I mentioned, not David Edwards specifically out of Texas, but one of his people has is the one that's suing the county or something and kind of pushing forth with that. So I did get that, and talked to a few people, read a few books. There's such a vast, information out there. I do, it's like, an LLC embedded under that actually comes from David Edwards's group, that you can have that. For me, honestly, personally, it's like I would want to be as 100% as possible free of any regulatory agencies, as is possible, than you know um, than just saying having the LLC under this. But I understand there are people who have different scenarios. Like, I've met people who are maintaining their licenses right now and kind of keeping them as long as they possibly can, under their PMA. So there are different scenarios, and I'm not sure what specific the misinformation that's coming out, because I think that there is a lot of flexibility in it. And I've actually helped edit and correct a lot of paperwork coming from some of these organizations. And I don't know everything. I'm a researcher, but I know David Edwards studied for decades. I did reach out to him. I never heard back from him. I did speak
Yeah,
to
there's
one of
something,
his,
he's not available anymore for
yeah,
his business grew. I
yeah,
got my paperwork from him. He was the only one doing it originally.
yeah,
But he got Renegade Ranch in Nevada, near Nevada City, that opened up as a PMA grocery store, and now they've started Renegade Nation, and they're helping people with PMAs. And what I love about what they're doing is they have a membership online platform now to really help get the PMAs out there, like you're doing as well, because the more of us there are, the
right,
more we can help
right,
each other. Somebody earlier on asked that question about, if they come and get you, like the county had come on their property and they knew enough to be able to stand up for their rights, because
right,
your paperwork, right, is one thing, but if you can't articulate what your rights are,
exactly,
you are going to be bowled over by these kind of
exactly.
intimidating entities.
And so you're referring to Mike Colum's group out
Yeah,
there, who's that's his
Mike
store,
and
and
Vanessa.
he's been very crazy busy too. In fact, I've provided a lot of support to people who he's provided paperwork to, and I've fielded a lot of questions because they said he's not really available. So he's getting, this is blowing up, and I admire that aspect of what he's doing, of pushing back, because it is going to set a precedence, for that. I just want to go briefly back to about the lady with the gym, if I could, and to stress the importance of educating your membership. For instance, if people just sign the new paperwork and you haven't taken the time to educate them, and somebody injures themselves while they're there, you might have an issue despite having good paperwork. So you want to make sure that you are specifically addressing all the members and make sure they fully understand what they're signing, and that there's not going to be litigation, that everything is held um, in-house. So that would be really important, especially in a situation where there could be a potential issue. um, just, we know USA Swimming in Oregon here is making parents sign a waiver that if their child has a heart attack while swimming, that they're not going to be held liable. It's sad that that's actually what has come to it, but they know that there's increased risks, with activity and things like that. So educating your membership is a really important part. It's not just a matter of, a lot of people don't read their paperwork. You really have to spend the time in a situation like that, especially to let them know, hey, this is what we're doing different, and this is what's different about it. And it's, it is the new paradigm. We're holding each other accountable. We're being responsible for our actions. We're making connections and relationships and getting away from, all the government overreach. I see a baby.
Thank you so much, Johanna, for answering that. Does anybody else have any more questions? If not, we're going to end the call, and we just thank you all so much for being here. Is there anything else you wanted to share, or give out any more information? This is the time. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. This is Jennifer Serenity from Dare to Be Different. Please go ahead and look in your email box later today for all the awesome links to get Johanna's book. And if you'd like to join our membership, you can do that too. We'll reach out to Crystals, and we will give you your free membership and give you some more information about that. Thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.